Okay, this is our empathy circle, and our topic is pretty much just whatever is alive for you, and talking about XR, our experiences, and kind of just open it for whoever would like to get started. And does anybody want to do timekeeping? Does anybody have it? Okay, Carolina.
I can do that.
So whoever would like to start.
I can go.
Okay.
If no one else is, yeah. So, Bill, will you?
I'd be happy to, Marta.
Yeah. Where am I at? Yeah, I'm very happy to see all of you.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's been a long time because I didn't make it last Friday. I was hoping I would, but then we were in the middle of an action and I just couldn't have enough piece of space around to actually connect. Yeah, and I'm curious to see how everyone else is doing as well.
Okay, so you're really happy to be back, and you kind of missed a couple of sessions, and you felt it, but you were in the middle of an action, so you really didn't have the time to actually, to focus or to really give it your attention. And so now you're back, and you seem to feel kind of enervated or energized in a way, and you're happy to see people and want to know how we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Sinead did a good job of keeping everyone in the loop of what's happened here in Dublin. And there's certainly, not that everything was perfect in any way, but there's certainly a lot to be proud of. And, it was nice to sort of have the empathy banner and actually put to good use the things that we learned here in this empathy cafe and make it a reality on the streets. That and the de-escalation bringing both together and seeing how. So here it was only 1 week, not in not as much as in London. Didn't carry on beyond the week, but it was good to see how even throughout the week, people that at the beginning wouldn't have considered, this empathy thing would be too fluffy, but we sort of gradually won them over the week. It's nice to watch.
So you, you're feeling enervated or energized. You were really appreciative of Sinead for acting as a really effective communicator. You felt that there were certain things, not everything was absolutely successful, but overall, you're very proud of a lot of the things you did. And you were particularly proud of the fact that you took the concepts and the kind of dialogue that we have here and were able to express them on the street. And as you did, you found that people who thought that empathy was very soft and fuzzy found it a very effective tool, got the benefits themselves, and were starting to really be more accepting.
Yeah. It's so nice to hear that. And we had about at least 15 people in the working as empathy first responders over the week, and there's quite a nice gender balance as well. And each, it wasn't always like empathy cafe format. Sometimes it was a bit different formats, but all of them were informed by this, and there was a lot of debriefing that happened that was deeper because of it being informed by empathy. Yeah.
So you were really really pleased by the way the format and some of the core beliefs and ideas that happen in the Empathy Cafe can be translated to a variety of different situations where the format might change, but the essence stays the same. And it's about, valuing the listening to the other and valuing their experience and things like that. And that you found that it's effective over a variety of adapting it to a variety of different situations.
Yeah. And I think last thing that comes to mind is one thing that we didn't, because we were all running around as well,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't use it so much for when conflict emerged. I think one of the things that wasn't so great was whenever conflict did emerge, and it never exploded, but there were, situations where it would have been nice to actually take the time to tease conflict apart and grow more together. But in the course of the week, it was just such a run that there was really no, so we didn't, that part is still missing, maybe for Rebellion Week 3.
Right. So looking ahead and ways to improve, you were thinking that, there are times where there were conflicts, didn't sound like it exploded into a physical conflict, but came close and they were acrimonious, and that you wish you could have applied the empathic listening techniques in those areas, but there just wasn't the time or the acceptance and able to do that in that moment. But you're looking forward to kind of training people up and doing more of that in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, sure. My pleasure. By the way, I know I'm not supposed to comment, but it kind of, really gave me a taste of what's going on. Okay. So I get to talk. I'll talk to Mr. Fancy Background there, Bob Brown.
I'm listening.
If that's his real name. They had, so first of all, he went to a family reunion. He told me there were 47 Browns, and those guys, they've got to be all aliases. So I don't know what's going on there, but we'll ferret it out one way or the other. So good to see my good friend Bob. So I'll stop there.
So you're commenting on the background behind me, Northern Arizona, and remembering that this picture was taken during a family reunion of 47 Browns in Flagstaff, and you are incredulous as to how that actually happened.
Yeah. So, I am, so first, and also I said kind of like fuzzing the lines here, but I was really glad to be able to reflect Marta, or hear, even if I hadn't reflected her, just her experience, because I believe that she's really applying the principles in a cutting edge, real-time environment. And, and I think that's excellent experience. I'm really, there are certain things that I really value, like her judgment. There wasn't an overreach, there wasn't a force, real maturity in trying to, to show other people the benefits of empathy rather than tell them. And so anyway, I was really encouraged by that. I'll stop there.
So you are delighted listening to Marta and being the privileged partner to reflect. And you were very impressed with her skills on the field, on the street, using empathy in real time. And as you say, so impressed and in awe of what she's doing.
Right. And I know that there was also some discussion about, topics for this group, which I think we can come up with. But I think that right now it seems to be, this could be an excellent part of a kind of ongoing restorative practice for XR members. And that could be like a kind of base theme for this particular group, and exploring, ideas such as a new democracy and climate change and things like that. And that could be the base, and then people could then, spin off that. If there's a particular, if Antarctica melts or something like that, then we can take a topical thing. But it seems to me overall is supporting sort of, that would be a good theme. XR, members, and, re-energizing listening.
So you are enlivened with the possibilities in the future for using the empathy circle to support XR, and broaden the message of empathy and support the XR movement.
Yeah, by giving people the experience of being heard.
So you're delighted that people could have the experience of being heard and affirmed in the empathy process.
Thanks, Bob. I feel completely heard.
Okay. Carolina, would you please listen to me?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. I am flummoxed. I am amazed and perplexed at how hard it is to get across a simple message that the Earth's atmosphere is dying. Any rational human being can look at the data of the parts per million of carbon dioxide and realize we are in deep trouble, and the rate of carbon dioxide increase is increasing, and I am just perplexed, more than perplexed, about why so many people are denying that.
So I don't remember what perplexed means.
Confused.
Confused, okay. So you feel, well, confused, but I'm sort of uncomfortable, and it's strange to you that the message of the climate crisis is so difficult to address to so many people, and they kind of don't recognize what is right ahead of them, the carbon dioxide crisis, so to speak, is very easy to see, and yet people don't see the problem. Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. My suspicion is that it is a question of evolution of consciousness. People like Donald Trump are so self-centered, they are not interested in growing as a human being to fulfill one's potential. And people like him attract millions of people who refuse to grow and who put self at center. And I hope that the XR movement and the empathy movement can help people evolve and grow as human beings.
Okay, so you think that the reason of this situation, this really affects all of us, is kind of evolutionary problem, but not only in a biological sense, but you named an evolution of consciousness as a part of the whole process. And you said that for you it seems to be a problem with not, as you name it, growing up by many people, and you particularly pointed Donald Trump, who has enormous influence on many voters. But actually, he is for you good example of not growing up to the reality we face.
Yes, so I want to recommit myself to empathy and to nonviolent demonstration to wake people up.
So this situation, this dramatic situation, drives you to focus on empathy and committing to the action that actually might help people wake up their consciousness.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Well, that was difficult for me. Actually, time is almost up. Okay, so maybe Edwin, would you
listening?
Would you reflect me? Okay. A lot of things I would like to say. First of all, I'm very concerned about the fact that every time we get a bigger amount of participants in our empathy circle, then it kind of drop down and we lose momentum, and I'm struggling with understanding why it's happening. It was happening during our Bridging Political Divides project. It happened in English circles. It happens in Polish XR circles. And I'm struggling with understanding how it happens, why it happens.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that you want to share, and the one point you're starting with is wondering why there's sort of a drop-off of participation in these different areas that we work at with the Bridging Political Divides. There's a bunch of people come, then it kind of drops off, and now in the XR group it's sort of the same, and just really have a curiosity and a wonder of why that is.
Yeah, and why we stick with empathy circles and others not. What is the difference? Why some of us kind of clinging to the empathy circle, to the method, and want to develop it, and others not? Others don't. Why?
Yeah, so a real question of why do we really stick with it and others don't? It's like, why is that? The real curiosity.
What the difference is.
And what's the difference between the people who stay with it and don't stay with it? How are they different? How are we different?
How to explain that? So this is one thing. I believe that the vast part, I don't know how to say it, contribution to that repeating drop off of participation is the mechanism of Facebook, how it works. It blocks us from inviting participants, and many other mechanisms of Facebook platform blocks many actions we want to take. We can't do that, and it kind of stops us from developing.
So one cause you think is just sort of technical aspects of Facebook, how it inhibits from inviting people to the events.
Yeah, but I think it's much deeper problem, and we still can't find the reason, as I see it.
Yeah, so it's much more deeper than that, and we still don't know what the real reason is.
And another thing is, I'm very deeply touched by three things that happened during the international rebellion in London. One is this Section 14 ban for XR activists. It's an act from 1986, I suppose, if I remember correctly, and it forbids activists of XR. In this case, it's a gosh, I'm tired. I'm sorry. It's a full, complete ban of protesting in Greater London. Nobody can protest. So all the protesters, XR protesters in Greater London area now are doing it illegally for the whole week. So this is one thing.
So there's three things that you are really struck by in XR and what's happening in London. The first one is just this citywide ban for XR. So you're just really wondering about that, noting that.
Actually, my time is up, so probably I will say about two others next time,
Okay.
next round. Thank you. I feel heard.
So I'll speak to Marta.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I have the same wonder with Caroline about, how to get more involvement, in the empathy work. So I have sort of the same kind of curiosity, and it seems that somehow we're maybe not addressing a need that, as well as we could. So, or something. So I have the same kind of questions around that, and I'm sitting with those as well.
Mm. Yeah, so you're also, like Carolina mentioned, you're also wondering what is it that makes it that people don't, don't turn up, and whether it's that there's an unmet need of some form that we're just not reaching out to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's. It seems like there's maybe something that's coming up is something doing more around like empathy circles with conflict, or even role-playing conflict. So something we talked about was there was this conflict of in XR of the people that were on the subway who got pulled down, and then sort of beat up because of really angry commuters. And to actually have two people be protesters and two role play being commuters, angry commuters, and then have an empathy circle kind of doing role play. Because there's two things that really intensify an empathy circle. One is conflict, having some kind of a conflict. And then the other is getting very deeply personal. If you can get very deeply personal, those two things are very strong, qualities of an empathy circle that make it go deeper. So, those are some things I'm thinking about.
Yeah, so you're thinking of what kind of motivators there could be for people to take part in empathy circles, and whether that it could be done in a training, role play sort of format, where you'd have actually use a conflict like the example of the one in the Underground in London, where you'd have the two protesters and then the two commuters that would be upset by the protest, and have those role plays, because there would be the motivation, there'd be the conflict, and there'd be the need for the empathy there.
Yeah, so that's, and then the other is about getting leadership involved. I did a mediation between a right-wing group and a left-wing group that was in San Francisco, and that had a lot of views. Like, really, people really want to see these leaders in an empathy circle and what they're doing. So it's something like, trying to organize empathy circles with like the leaders of XR, even though they say there's no leaders. It's the facility, the founders, the people who are out there, spokespeople, whatever you want to call them. If they would do empathy circles and then have the empathy circles with them and critics of XR, so that there's another level that could spark more interest.
Yeah. So you're curious and thinking what might work. And one thing would be to have the main people in XR, they're not official leaders, but somehow they're the people that are the most involved and might be associated with it, that they would model it. And they'd, and you seem quite curious and excited about the idea in getting them involved, modeling it, but also having, them do it with people that would be critical of XR. And that maybe that would spike people's interest.
Yeah. So, and then also it's coming up is I'm really excited about the work you were doing there. And I mean, it was just very exciting just to see the photos and, to hear about it and see the video, so yeah, that's kind of like the high point of just being able to see that. And so, yeah, I feel pretty touched by just the work and commitment that you have, and Jeanette, and just your group there. Very impressed.
Yeah, so it was nice for you to see, a window into the work that was happening here, and the things that were being offered, and the pictures of it, and being connected to the fruits of, the offering.
Yeah.
Seeing it come. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Bob, would you?
I'm listening.
Thank you. Yeah. I also feel disappointed. I suppose you didn't use the word disappointed. You were curious about it. I feel disappointed that there's not more people on the call today. After so much interest, that I witnessed in the people in Dublin, that were telling me, it's great you're doing this. I really want to be there. It's such a resource. Going to use it, and just, maybe an hour ago, I had a message from someone said, "Oh, I'd like to go, but could I do just half of it? I've got a yoga class after." And like, yeah, just some disappointment there.
So you're expressing disappointment at what you thought would be a good turnout for this event. And one person in particular said, "Can I just come for half? I have a yoga class." So you're disappointed.
Yeah. And at the same time, I'm very grateful that I can have it, even if others aren't turning up, I still get the benefit of it. So maybe it's a bit self-centered, but I'm grateful.
And in addition to being disappointed, you're very grateful that you can take part and receive the benefits, and your gratitude knows no bounds.
Yeah. One thing that hearing it made me think of is it was great having, all the empathy resources there, because they were very nourishing for the people that took part in the regenerative culture tent. And they were very useful at actions. But most of the main coordinators did not take part and did not take time to regenerate. I suppose they probably went to regenerate in the pub or at home with their families, or, somehow else. So it'd be nice to have had more coordinators taking part in these activities.
So during the action, you interfaced with coordinators and you thought they might benefit from the empathy practice, and you're a little let down that not many of them took up the offer of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we managed to showcase the benefit of it at actions, across the board. but in terms of to actually sit in an empathy circle, we, for that, people would have to physically come to the tent, and they didn't do that. And I suppose, as I say, this what's coming up is maybe next time we need to take the circles to the action, but because it would be short format. Yeah, maybe I'm curious to know how. Yeah, don't know. Just thinking about what we could do next time.
So, reflecting on the past weeks, you're wondering how we can combine the empathy circle itself in the midst of an action versus preparation for an action, and just wondering about the possibilities for bringing together empathy and XR.
Yeah. And then I was also deeply touched by your share earlier, Bob, about the disbelief of how people can know the science, or like the science is out there, and that we're just not, that people as a whole are just not engaging with it. Yeah.
And you are impressed with the level of disbelief in the face of scientific fact that we face.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
You're welcome. Edwin, would you please listen to me?
Yes, listening.
I just rejoined Facebook, and the reason I did was because one of our homeless community members uses Facebook, and I realized it's a good way to communicate with people. And because of Amy, I'm back on, and I think I want to welcome every friend request so that I can put in posts for empathy and other interests that I have, and just offer it to folks and see who responds positively.
So you're back on Facebook for really connection, because you see it, someone invited you, a homeless person invited you back on, and you're really wanting to do it for the sense of connection and promotion of empathy.
Yes, and I can just see my little page, friends, 5,000. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that many will unfollow me because of my radical politics. But it's a way to connect. And as much as I dislike Mark Zuckerberg and his greed, I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't like the Facebook and Mark and greed and all that aspect of it, but you're having gratitude for the opportunity to connect and to use the platform.
And so I'm grateful for the ability to connect with the world and be part of the world, and accept the benefits and welcome the detriments.
So really grateful for the positive and the connection and the work with the world, and also holding the negative aspects of it too.
Yes. I'm reminded of a story about the Buddha in his night of coming to full awareness. Mara tempted him, saying, nobody's going to pay attention to what you're saying. And the Buddha was taken aback. He said, you're probably right, but I still think there's enough people who will listen to the message that I do want to go forward with it. And so Mara went away disappointed.
So one person, someone told the Buddha that people aren't going to pay attention to your message, maybe trying to discourage him. And then the Buddha said, well, there's enough people, there's some people, so I'll just keep working with them.
Thank you, I feel fully heard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Carolina, speak to you, if that's okay.
Yes, I'm listening.
Yeah, with what Martha said, I would say it was, I do feel disappointment too, a little bit of sadness, in terms of one a feeling of sort of growth and sort of forward motion. And while there's some of that, you just kind of want things to kind of grow more quickly and, for more sense of that feeling of forward motion in terms of the empathy work.
So what I'm hearing you saying that you sharing the same feeling of disappointment because of turnout on our circles, and you would like to make it faster, but you suppose we have to be patient or something like that?
Not really patient. It was, yeah, I didn't really feel like we need to be patient. But the one thing that did come to me was we've had it happen before where it tends to be a small group. But when it's a small group, it's always very delightful. It's actually less stressful, more enjoyable to have this small group. It's kind of intimate. It's people who are really committed. And it's like less work, and it's actually, I find it repeatedly very enjoyable. It's kind of like friends coming together, and more of it feels kind of more intimate. So on one hand, I have that disappointment. On the other, I sort of savor the quality of the connection too. So it's interesting.
So you mean that not exactly you feel like we need to be more patient, but actually you, from one side, you feel like disappointed, but from the other side, you enjoy this small group of people who are committed to the idea of empathy circle, and it's more, I don't know,
Intimate.
cozy, intimate.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And
Relaxed.
And it lets you be more relaxed when in normal circle, kind of regular circle, well, there are new people, you have to be more mobilized and more technically organized, as I understand. That's what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of making, having that feeling of growth and momentum, I look into that, the feeling of it, and just say, well, what is it that will, create that? Because I do enjoy that too. And I think, I keep coming up with new ideas and, trying them out. And, but it is a constant sort of a searching, experimenting and seeing what creative ideas come up and trying them out. So that's sort of the way forward for me.
Okay. So it's like not the first time you feel that sort of disappointment, and you are trying to be persistent, kind of seeking for new opportunities, new ways to spread the idea, and on, trying again to new things. And well, that's how you, as I understand, believe you develop the whole project.
Yeah, it's to innovate, just keep innovating, having new ideas, being creative. And I think part of that is really to try to see what are people's needs, what is it? Because it is strange, because just like Martha's saying, is like when we did the political work, bridging the divides, there was so many positive comments. I mean, there's like pages of positive comments that I translated, but then people say, oh, this is great, but then they just kind of go, don't continue with it as a practice. And so it's a little bit of a mystery why that is that there's something like, oh, this is kind of fun, this is good, this is positive, but well, then I won't keep up. So there's something about a commitment to, and I think maybe part of that is I'm looking at is maybe we need more of a vision, because the regenerative culture has a vision. It's kind of a vision statement that people can work towards. And that's what we started doing, was trying to create the culture of empathy vision statement, so that you know that you're going for a deeper vision of life. And maybe that's what we need to articulate better. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, first, you feel like we need to be innovative
Mm-hmm.
all the time, and it doesn't mean, it means kind of socially innovating, finding new ways to make people attracted to Empathy Circle. Oh, you were saying so many things
Yeah.
that I
Well,
feel
just
a
the
little bit
essence of
lost.
it. Just say the essence is fine. Uh-huh.
And oh gosh, I've forgotten.
I feel heard, though.
No,
I feel
no, no,
fully
no,
heard.
no. You were saying important things. I just lost them. Help me, please.
I feel fully heard, Carolina. Really.
No, I
You,
want to.
you really want to replay
Vision statement.
vision statement. Yeah, having the vision
Yeah, that's
statement.
what you were saying. Yeah, vision statement. So you think that maybe we need to create kind of vision statement because it will be something, because people need to believe in something that is in this empathy circle, and lack of it, just offering the method is not enough. So you're trying to find a new way, and you see the this vision statement, sort of mission or something like that, kind of, maybe that will be the something that will help to spread and develop the whole.
Feel fully heard. Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. Thank you. I don't know, but I'm have some problems with focusing, concentration today, and the last few days were difficult. Okay, so I'm choosing Bill. Would you listen to me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, just let me restart. Okay. Yeah, I believe that people not follow us because what we do, they understand what we do, but because they see we believe in it. So maybe they need to see a sort of vision, something we believe in, and our commitment to that, and that may happen, help to develop really empathy
Okay.
circle
So
and
you're
culture
saying,
of empathy.
so you're saying you we're kind of agreeing with Edwin about the need to develop a vision statement, which would help people and orient them towards a longer term view of growth with using the empathy circle process rather than just exposing them to the process alone.
Well, the important thing is that people follow the leader, not because they agree with him or her, but because they see that this leader truly believes in something.
Okay,
This element of belief and strong commitment is very important part of it, and maybe we need to show it.
So part of the vision, what I didn't acknowledge was the part about the leader being consistent and showing and demonstrating their belief in the process or whatever, or the idea and the goals. And then that's what really makes an impression on people.
Yeah. And I would like to come back to what I was saying in the first round, because I felt really touched by the events of this week. This situation in London Tube underground, were XR activists who were blocking transport trains from moving were physically, biologically attacked, and it looked like it was almost the lynch on them by commuters. I believe that's what might happen to many XR activists. And it is important to talk about it.
Okay.
There was no police. There were just activists and commuters who physically attacked them.
So you were very touched by the incident on the subway between the commuters and the XR people, and you really feel for everybody's safety in that situation, and very concerned, and are looking at a way to deal with those situations, how that might be averted in the future.
Because, well, what I mean, I believe that in the tube, what happened in the tube, actually people, during the People's Assembly a day before, on the Trafalgar Square, were talking about. There was a people assembly on Trafalgar Square, and there is the link in our groups to this recording. And people were talking, among many other very important things. In some point, people start talking that XR movement is a movement of white, privileged, middle class. And not everybody has luxury to be arrested. Not everybody can do that. And I stopped there.
So you were talking that there was a discussion in Trafalgar Square the day before the incident on the tube, where that was discussed, among other things, and that the issue that seemed to come up for you was the fact that the XR movement was sort of white middle class, and that not everybody has the luxury of being arrested.
Okay, my time is up, but let me end the thought. May I?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So it might be crucial for XR movement, because for me, I see the same thing. Well, we have very monolithic society in Poland. We don't have ethnic groups. We don't have people of color almost at all in Poland. Mm-hmm. But still we have social economical gaps. We have social classes. And however, people I know in my movement are rather poor. We are not middle class, at least not in terms of income. But I see that many people who join the climate organizations and movements are very specific people from very specific social classes. And there are groups that don't join the movement at all. So I feel like we ignore some social, maybe economical, maybe political problems of some groups in our society and try to impose our topic on them. And that's how their frustration began.
Okay. So you were saying that because of this white middle class demographic, you find that basically poor people and people of color are not joining, and that possibly, the movement then is not really reaching out to them or being effective to them, and so that should be looked at as a sort of self-examination by the XR movement itself, how they can better do that, and then hopefully become, have a better crafted message and goal.
Well, I didn't say that XR movement should examine itself. I mean rather that, I'm sorry that prolonging, but I mean rather that we actually ignore that those people probably have different problems, and we ignoring their problem and want them to get involved in our problems, which we see as a climate crisis as a main problem.
Right. So for the white middle class who are seeing climate crisis, which is sort of more abstract, although it's real, problem, we're sort of ignoring the day-to-day crises that poor people and people of color have, and not giving them enough weight.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. All right. I'll go to Marta.
Yeah, Bill.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sort of in a curmudgeon-y state. People know, Bob knows curmudgeon-y, and Edwin knows curmudgeon-y. Yes. Okay. So I'm a grouchy old man. I'll stop there.
So, if I understand it well, you're in complaining mode. Is that?
Sort of, like I'm irritated.
Yeah, you're annoyed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so the first thing that came up for me when Carolina and Edwin were talking, and I have to say, and I really, seriously speaking, I've seen the frustration and how difficult this is, and I've experienced just a little of it myself. So I understand the frustration, and I really empathize with the frustration. But I see that the frustration is hindrance to the goal. So the first thing I said is, stop whining.
So yes, so you were annoyed, and you felt like the disappointment that people were expressing was not very helpful, and they should stop it, because you've seen this before, people not turning up, and you think it's beside the point. That it's not, that the goal stands in spite of people.
Right. And understanding that I'm saying stop whining when I make the same mistakes myself, and I'm saying I'm curmudgeon-y, just, it's meant in a, it's true, and it's also meant in a kind of humorous, and also it applies to me too. So I include myself when I do that. A lot of times I find myself telling myself, stop whining, which is, I think, good advice. I think you could write a book on that. Stop whining. And you wouldn't have to actually fill it up with anything else, just the title. So,
Go
ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're saying that one could almost write a book just about that, overcoming, getting over, and there's a sense of humor. And you were just saying as well that you yourself go through the motion of noticing that there's a certain satisfaction, but you don't stay with it.
And so, seriously speaking, what you Marta experienced this weekend is the truth. And what did you see? You were given a tool, easily used, and it was proved effective. And that's the story. There's no other story. There's no other, these people aren't doing it, or these people aren't coming, and stuff like that. I mean, I understand that. And, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, look to, and innovate and things like that. But that's really the story. It's much, more than anything we said here, I would suggest that you were motivated to do what you did because of the experience you had in the circle, feeling heard. and that when you gave that experience to others, you saw it being effective. And that's an experience. And then those are the most powerful things. And we are creating that. It is being created slowly. Maybe we could do it more effectively, but that's really the only story, that it works. You went out and used it, and that we then have to, try to make it more effective, sure, but it's excellent. Excellent base upon which to build on.
So yes, you're saying, well, that it's to focus on really that the tool, when applied, works, and that's what it's designed for, and that's what it's supposed to do. So it's a success. And
right.
If that we can think about, strategy and all that, but in a way that's all secondary, because what's important really is that when people experience empathy, when they experience the tool, it's a positive thing.
Right. And I do agree with that we shouldn't have we should have a vision, and because that could better explain it to people and make it more real to people and more accessible to people. But essentially, in other words, we weren't telling you how to feel or it wasn't any dogma that we gave you. We just, or Edwin gave you, or it was just a tool, and the tool worked. And that's very important.
So yes, if I got it right, what you're saying is that it's something that is experienced, and that is what it's there for, and that on its own is enough. Is that?
Yeah, just generally speaking, to wrap up, I'm just saying is that the fact that this experience that you have and I have and Edwin has and Bob has and the people on the street have, that we can all share that experience, is a demonstration of the effectiveness of the tool. And that's what we should focus on and build on.
So that it's the experience of people being able to go deep and to experience the practice on, us here that are present and people on the street that we do that with, that's the practice working.
Thank you. I feel heard, Marta. Thank you.
Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's very refreshing hearing Bill say that, and I suppose what I was thinking before then was, okay, I'm going to make this plan, and before the end of the year, I'm going to get 10 people from Ireland to do this. So I was not just thinking, as Edwin said, of a mission, but actually starting to create goals around it. Not that I'm attached to the goals but just thinking. And when I heard Bill, that made me think about, is that to satisfy me or actually serve? Yeah.
So I hope I understand you.
Sorry, I was a bit all over the place.
You saying that you weren't actually just creating a vision, but you start to making plans about Empathy Circle in Ireland. It was very concrete, sort of. That's what you mean?
Yeah.
And now you feel like maybe you shouldn't be so, I'm not sure if I understand you well, you shouldn't be so bound to those plans, more kind of be flexible. That's what you mean?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
I had I was in Dublin the whole week, and then on Sunday I came to Cork, and I did the Joanna Macy, the Work That Reconnects workshop. and it's a workshop to deal with climate grief.
So let me reflect that. So you were the whole week, you have been the whole week in Dublin during the rebellion, and then you came back for the weekend to Cork, and you participated in a workshop that is somehow built around the Joanna Macy concept. That's what you're saying. Great turn, you mean?
Yeah, to do with climate grief.
Yeah, okay, so workshop about climate grief.
And yeah. And yeah, it's, I don't have the answers yet, but I think I need, I want to maybe learn more about climate grief, because there seems to be a need for people to understand what is happening beyond the facts, beyond just the parts per million, beyond just, I think maybe if I learn more about the emotional side, I can help.
So you saying that you think you should or you need to learn more about this concept of climate grief because you think like that for people it's difficult to understand the whole situation just looking into the scientific facts. They actually need to kind of emotionally connect to the vision that is behind those facts, to the situation, the image of the earth and our own life that is behind those facts. That's what you mean?
Yeah. And it was very sad. I think everyone that was there at the workshop cried because it is sad. But doing it together with others made it useful, made it good.
So this workshop was very sad, kind of didn't give more any optimism, but being together with other participants during this workshop kind of helped to go through and somehow gave positive feelings, as I understand.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. So I'm not sure who wasn't, I lost I don't know who wasn't talk for a while. Would you help me? Edwin?
You can ask whoever wants to speak, ask for a,
Okay. Who wants to speak?
or listen. I mean, and you can do it like 0, 5 is a high. And if you do 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
it's one way to.
So 5, you want to talk very much. 1 or 0, you don't need so much. Okay, Edwin, I'm choosing you. I feel like I'm mumbling today. Can't express myself very well, so I don't feel comfortable with that. Can't remember words. I feel like maybe I am a little bit tired or something. I feel uncomfortable because in such situation it's difficult to understand what I mean.
So you feel uncomfortable because you don't feel like you're expressing yourself. You feel like you're mumbling and really not able to express yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I decided to do 3 things that happened during this week in London, and especially this situation in London Tube and those voices of People's Assembly on Trafalgar Square. I decided to make it a topic of our Polish circle because I feel I can touch something very uncomfortable for us, but something that has to be solved, has to be kind of open and discussed. We can't ignore it.
So there's 2 sort of events or things that you're wanting to discuss and look at. One is what happened in the Tube, and then the other is in the square. I can't remember.
Trafalgar Square.
Trafalgar Square. So something was said there that you think these 2 things need to be addressed and not hidden.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like, well, my motivation to join XR movement, because I'm quite radical left activist. If I wouldn't be committed to Gandhian approach, I probably would be Antifa. I was Antifa once, but the reason I joined XR is not just Empathy Circle, which is very important to me, and I believe this is the way I can follow what I believe in, but this very deep feeling that reason of climate catastrophe are the very same reasons that the reasons of social economical injustice. It is all the same thing, and I have very deep belief in it. So for me, it's the same struggles, the same fight, the same job to do to change that.
Mm-hmm. So you see that injustice between people and with the climate is sort of really the same issue, and you're really wanting to address that, and that's why you're working on with XR, because you're wanting to really address this issue. And if you didn't have this Gandhian method, you'd probably be very radical, violent Antifa. You'd really go the route of violence, but you also have this nonviolence.
I wouldn't say
approach.
that.
No,
I wouldn't say that. I know
Okay.
that Antifa in many places around the world has this tendency to struggle in violent way, but this is not the definition of Antifa. Okay, they are different.
Okay, so the violence doesn't really fit. There's something else there for Antifa.
Yeah, but I believe that if we accept violence, we can't actually build a different society, because there is no such thing like ends that justify our methods. If we use wrong methods, they make our ends, our goals not important. They replaced, no matter how beautiful goals. if we use wrong methods, we abandon those goals. And the whole history of 20th century is about it, okay? Because there was a beautiful idea of equal, just society, but enforcing this idea with, so to speak, Tsar apparatus cost abandoning this idea, actually. So, no, we can't. We can't use wrong methods.
So you can't use the wrong methods for the means don't justify the ends, in the sense that maybe the means are the end. You didn't quite say that, but the means are the end. So if we want an empathic culture, we have to use empathic means, in other words.
Yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Yeah, thanks. I'll speak to Bob.
I'm listening.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd made some various notes. I think what Martha was addressing was the need for, tapping into deeper felt experiences like grief, and doing that together with others, and that has a real connecting and healing quality to it. So it's just that whole going deeper into the felt experience is really important for, yeah.
So I hear you saying that Marta touching on grief, and you're resonating with that. It is through those deeper feelings and emotions, sometimes painful, that make this empathy experience powerful.
Yeah, and in terms of the frustration that we were expressing, that's a feeling too, feeling of frustration. And the same thing, we have to be able to have space to feel that. And if Bill says no frustration, that's a valid point too. It's like it's people deal with it differently, but I'm for expressing the empathy circle. Everything is welcome. So I want to just hold the expression of frustration and the not wanting to experience frustration or something is valid too.
So you are pointing out that frustration is a feeling, and feelings are welcome, and also statements like no whining are also welcome.
Yeah. So it's a space to work out those differences, right? So that's it's important that everything is welcome. So I just want to keep saying that. And the other, maybe just reflect that.
So empathy offers space for everything, and it affirms everything and welcomes everything.
Mm-hmm. And I see it as sort of an integrative process too. We can have a dialogue. Can we have a dialogue with frustration and a dialogue with whatever the opposite is of no frustration? Have them talk with each other empathically. That can be kind of fun too.
So you envision dialogue with frustration and non-frustration being a very constructive process.
Yeah, and the other thing was with Carolina's issue of the attack in the subway, the fight or the beating up of the protesters of the XR. I think that one of the issues with the XR is that there's not a clear framing of wanting a dialogue. As I understand, Kingian nonviolence is that you first request a dialogue with the people in power or some party community, and then they say, well, we don't have time for a dialogue, or we don't want a dialogue, we like the way things are. And then you do the social actions to bring, and it ends with a dialogue. So with what was happening in the subway, I don't see a clearly articulated who in the hell did they want to talk to. It's just I'm just gonna interrupt you because I want the attention. It's not saying I want to have a dialogue. These people aren't talking to me, so I'm going to take this action. So I see that in XR. It's sort of back and forth. Like we want the government to have a dialogue, but then not. So it's not a clear, focused, clear request for a dialogue. So I see that as sort of a problem. And then you have to do actions to bring the dialogue with the specific people. It's like, do they want to have a dialogue with the commuters? You know, it's like, hey, we want to have a dialogue with you and you're not talking to us, so we're going to stand up here until you have a dialogue with us. I mean, it was just very muddled, you know, so. I mean, that was a lot, but yeah.
So I hear you saying that in the classical Gandhian process.
Kingian, yeah, it might be Gandhian too, but definitely Kingian.
And Thoreau too. The first step is to request dialogue. If the dialogue request is rejected, then there are actions taken specifically to confront those who refuse dialogue to get them to accept dialogue.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're concerned that actions for the sake of actions are not connected to the need and request and the goal of dialogue.
Yeah, so it should be very clearly articulated who you want the dialogue with when you're doing an action. And, you know, so that just, I guess that's the point.
So you want to make sure that people who want dialogue are acting directly to those who have the authority for dialogue.
And I'm going to add one little point here over my time, is that the dialogue, that the request for dialogue is in an empathy circle. I think that's an added component that we can add. It's the nature, the structure of the dialogue, how we want, it's a fair, equal dialogue, an empathic dialogue. So it's also not just a dialogue, but the nature of the dialogue.
And so the dialogue the need for dialogue can specifically be stated to have an empathic dialogue.
Which is fair and equal for all participants.
A fair, equal dialogue for all participants.
Yeah, I feel heard.
Okay. Marta, would you please listen to me?
Yes.
I just got a book. And it's about active nonviolence. And it draws on the work of Gandhi, King, Thoreau, Gene Sharp, all the 20th century, 19th century leaders of nonviolent action. And I'm learning so much. And because I can see the possibility in the United States that 30 million Trump supporters will resort to violence as a way of expressing their feelings about what we're doing to their leader, Donald. And I hope that everyone who opposes Donald Trump can have an abundance of peace in their own souls so that nonviolent action will not turn to violent action.
So you're sharing the book that you've been diving into that has all these masters of nonviolence of the 20th century, and it's bringing to you this idea that it's really important that the people that are on the other side of the Trump supporters, on the other side of because there's 30 million people that might get very upset if actions against Trump are taken, and it's important to have a culture of nonviolence there to hold that upset.
Amen. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah. Is there anyone who wants to speak next? So yes, so Caroline, I'll speak to you just one sentence and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
Just to say that I appreciate that radical. When you said that you want people to have these conversations in Poland, I found that incredibly brave. I feel the same, like we should be having these conversations in Ireland, because the scene on the tube generated all sorts of Facebook polarization. But I'm not sure that I'm that brave at the moment that I'd, go straight into it here. Yeah.
Okay, so you are talking about what I was saying, that I decided to make it a topic of the next circle for Polish speakers about the situation in a London tube, and this situation very polarized. Even Facebook communities very, very strongly. And do you think that you also should organize such a circle in Ireland? But right now, as I understand, after this week of rebellion, you feel kind of overwhelmed and not ready to do that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's it. And I found it very brave that you, if you consider doing that there in Poland.
Okay, so you think that bringing this topic into the light is kind of courageous, brave thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will restart time. And Bill, maybe I choose you because I feel like you want to speak too.
That's
Am I
fine.
right?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, but
Okay.
Sure, I'll be happy to listen to you.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Marta. I don't perceive it as a brave thing. However, I know that it might trigger a lot of some trouble for us. But I believe that only through such trouble we can find the way. And I believe this is the way we have to go. Empathically, obviously, but this is what we need to do through the conflict, through the misunderstanding.
So you were appreciative of Martha calling you brave. You don't really necessarily feel that it's brave, but actually like a necessary path that's need to take. And that necessary path is to empathically deal with the conflict and then process it and move through the conflict using empathic means.
And I'm not very good with coping with conflict. However, I had this experience when I said something that triggered anger and creates kind of conflict situation. But if I'm trying to understand the other side during the conflict, it's kind of reshape relation. And I have this experience in my life many times. And some of those people with whom I was in sometimes very deep conflict eventually became a friend. Now they are my friends. So this is actually a good thing, because somewhere, if we're trying to be empathically listen and hear this another person who is with anger to us, somehow it's kind of disarm, this empathic approach disarm this anger, and the true dialogue begins.
So you were talking about going forward using empathic means, and you were contrasting instances where you were in deep conflict with people, but once you tried to use the technique as we do, is trying to kind of listen empathically and understand them, then that shifted the relationship. And these people you were in deep conflict became friends, and you feel that that is a good model to generalize.
At that time, I didn't heard yet. I didn't hear yet about empathic circle, empathic dialogue, but actually, it was sort of empathic listening. Now I see that.
Right.
I wasn't perfect in it, but somehow I was capable to do that, not knowing what I'm doing.
Right. So it was your natural impulse towards empathy and listening to the other side, and you didn't use this particular process necessarily, or it wasn't a very even thing, but that you got to the point of trying to understand the other person, and then that changed the relationship.
Yeah. But I would like to also come back to this book Bob mentioned. I'm very interested about this book. And what Edwin was saying about the fact that the whole situation in the London Underground or Tube, whatever you call it, was kind of misaddressing the message, and it wasn't clear purpose, or yeah, it was kind of misaddressing the call for dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say something about it. I stopped there.
Okay, so you were referencing a book that Bob mentioned that you're very interested in, and then you were saying that you were kind of agreeing with Edwin about his assessment about how this, how the protesters' message was sort of muddled and confused, and so that's something that you'd like to delve into deeper.
Yeah, but what I think, I want to go further, because, well, that's my time up. I just wrap up very quickly.
Sure.
I found in some XR documents, Google Docs, you know, different scripts for meetings and that sort of material, the moment when XR leaders like Gail Bradbrook, Roger Hallam, and others saying that they don't want to go deeper into nonviolent stuff, they just want to make this movement nonviolent. In short, this is wrong. That's how the situation in a tube happens.
Okay.
Because deep understanding is what Edwin began to talk about. Right addressing the message. Constructive idea, and when this constructive idea and message rightly addressed and rejected, this is the moment when you have space for protest. And you might be effective as Gandhi or Martin Luther King were successful. That's how it works. And not going deeply to this theory of nonviolence action is the reason why something like that in Tube might happen. That's what I believe. Maybe it's not enough time to explain that, but I see that.
Okay. So you're saying that some of the leaders of XR have said, yeah, we want to be nonviolent, but we're not going to really go deeper into that. And you feel that that's a mistake, and that led to the misunderstandings that occurred on the subway, or chaos.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to add that that's what I'm feel a little bit concerned about putting together in one book, Gene Sharp, which is exactly what leaders of XR are doing with Gandhi and King, because what Gandhi and King was doing is kind of different type of nonviolence. It's principled nonviolence, is integrative nonviolence, and what Sharp was proposing, which I believe is very dangerous, is strategic nonviolence. And those are different attitudes, completely different attitudes.
Okay. So you wanted to talk about the difference between Gandhian nonviolence and Kingian nonviolence, which basically
on one side,
that's underpinned by a deep, deep philosophy that, you know, you keep going in that, rather than tactical nonviolence, which is a very dangerous sort of idea, which is sort of a manipulative idea, using nonviolence as manipulation.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. I feel heard.
Okay. Sure. Okay. All right. Let's see. I guess I'll talk to Edwin.
Listening.
Yeah. So, I want to, let's see. So much. Let's see here.
A lot. Yeah.
There's a lot here. So first of all, I think, you know, I certainly want to, I really resonated with Carolina said that we have to be the change we want, essentially. And so I'll stop there.
Yeah, you're resonating with, so that we want to be the change that we want to see. So the means.
Right. Right. And in my younger days, when I couldn't afford therapy, I used the I Ching. And it's not necessarily as an oracle. It needs to be understood that the I Ching is the culmination of thousands of years of psychological information, and it's not perfect. It doesn't treat women, you know, in a very way, or it has outmoded family kind of roles. But it's a very useful book. So I'll stop there.
So before therapy, you used the I Ching as sort of a psychological personal growth or thing.
Yeah. And there's one of the things that it talks about is that there's a line, I was trying to find it, I couldn't. By the way, Carolina, this is the Wilhelm Baines edition. So you should know. Oh, it doesn't make a difference. Bob laughs. Okay. So that's a California thing then. That's a California thing. Okay. I know. It's I'll tell you later. It's an in-joke. I thought you might. All right. So anyway, there's in several ones, there's Darkening of the Light, which is 36. It was a hexagram. And it talks about what happens when the power structure is corrupt and what people must do to exist within it. And one of the lines that I think is really important that speaks to what Carolina and what you were talking is that it says, when evil feels it's attacked, it thinks of weapons. And when we talk about evil in that sense, we're talking about sort of like, again, the evil in others, but also the evil in ourselves when we feel afraid. And so we think of weapons. So when we think of weapons, then that's sort of an idea that we're kind of veering off the track here. So I'll stop there.
Oh, so when we're thinking of weapons, that we're sort of veering off the track.
But also that when the power structure feels that it's attacked, it thinks of weapons. And of course, we, more enlightened is that it's not you're the power structure too. So we have to look at ourselves and examine ourselves at the same time that we criticize our society. You know, are we doing it in the right way? Are we really being the change that we really want to be?
Oh, okay. So the power structure, if it feels attacked, that it will sort of think of weapons and in this, but there's also our own inner, each of us innerly have that that quality too. And if we feel attacked, it will go to weapons.
Right. And then that creates a conflict. So that, and that's why I think that the empathy circle is such an effective tool, and be an effective protest tool. And I won't talk it, but maybe I'll float the idea here a little bit, that we should have, XR should have an empathy circle, action. I mean, just how important would that be? And what you would do is you would use the citizens' assembly. You would take an issue. You would come up with a product, which would be like, okay, instead of subsidizing, for instance, gas and oil, we're going to go solar, something like that. I mean, I'm not being, I'm being kind of quick here. And then you would have an empathy circle. You would invite strangers to sit down and discuss it. Hey, this is a problem facing us all. This is what we've came up with. We think this is better than we have now. What do you think? How's it affecting you? And just imagine nobody blocking anything, but just walking by, people with chocolates and a nice chair to sit down. We're willing to listen to you, even if you don't want to, if you want to talk about something else.
Mm-hmm. So you're thinking of a strategy of having a XR demonstration, but where it's really going to reach out to the community, inviting them into dialogues around the topic.
Yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. I'll speak to Marta. Okay. Let's see. Oh, you had talked about the regen tent, and so the whole regenerative cultures. And I'm doing an interview dialogue with Daniel Wall, who wrote the Regenerative Cultures book. So I'm going to want to talk to him about a culture of empathy and regenerative culture, sort of how they interact and so I'm not quite sure what his role, if he's the guy that thought up the concept of regenerative culture, but he wrote a book. So anyway, I just thought it'd be good to talk with him, and we have a 60 to 90 minute dialogue lined up in another week or two.
So you're thinking forward to a conversation you're going to have with the author of the book apparently about regenerative culture, and so it's like, how does empathy sit within that, and you're going to have an opportunity to actually have that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited about it. So it kind of ties in with the vision, articulating the culture of empathy vision, because I see that we need a new vision compared to justice. There's been a lot of talk about, we need social justice and that, and I'm kind of skeptical about justice as a whole framework, as a vision to move towards. And I think there's a need for a sort of a new vision, and that's really based around empathy, so a social, cultural empathy. So it's, just something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, so we're excited and looking forward to it. And it's also that you're interested in this more integrated form empathy, rather than the more plain justice that seems a bit sense I got was that it's quite bare, and for you empathy is a bit more integrated and might be more useful.
It's deeper too, like justice, there's so many different definitions of everything, but justice is based on competition, right? That you're going into a justice system, and there's the sides, they sort of battle it out, and they hire gladiators who are, lawyers, and they sort of battle out for the truth. So the truth comes through sort of competition, and then it also comes through external judgment. People are going to judge you right or wrong. And then it has that, and then it also has retribution. Well, if you're wrong, we're going to punish you, right? So it's got a whole underlying set of values that people don't really talk about that are not exactly, you know, constructive. It's, you know, ultimately constructive.
Yeah, yeah, it's constructive and more human, maybe. Yeah. So all this mathematical and supposedly absolute sense of justice with all the different layers of it. Yeah, and retribution and right and wrong and very square is not really, you know, empathy is
Yeah.
more and more where you see it going.
Yeah, and the empathy is integrative, more integrative, and you know, restorative justice moves in that direction. But it seems like we need a clear, you know, clear, you know, vision of where we're going, of integrate, where we try to integrate, where it's just and those deeper underlying principles are just taken as you know, they're not even questioned within the justice movement. So. And there's a lot of other, you know, underlying principles to that. So it just, yeah, I guess I don't know what it's pretty hard to, there's a whole social justice movement, social justice warriors. It's just, it's a hard group to relate with because it's very combative and very, you know, the fist in the air. There's that combative aspect. It's like, yeah, we're gonna battle it out. It's a real battle. So yeah.
Yeah, that there's, you know, a right and a wrong in the battle and fixing something. Maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah.
The more restorative, empathic way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having that vision, you know, clearly articulated. So I'm thinking more about articulating, you know, really working at articulating that vision.
Yeah, making it more, you know, have a handle on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Feel heard.
Thank you. Bob? Okay.
I'm listening.
Yeah. I feel like I have a lot to learn. I'm sort of taking in all these books and all this information and feeling like I want to have the time to actually delve a bit more into that, because I have books like that on my shelf, but I suppose I've just never had the time. And it's also thinking that it's like training to be a little Jedi that we're trying to do here.
So you're saying that you're looking forward to finding time and investing in time to read the books that you have on your shelf, to become a Jedi of empathy and restorative justice. And
Yeah, one of the things that when I was doing the grief workshop, we did some work on grief and anger and fear and numbness. And the thing that came up for me with the fear was immediately of how am I going to, you know, how am I going to behave in a world of scarcity? What is that, you know, if pushed, would I be nonviolent? Would I, yeah. And so I think, yeah, I just want to acknowledge that is a real fear.
so in the workshop, which dealt with grief and anger and fear and numbness, you identify with the fear, and you're wondering how will you behave in a world of scarcity when the rubber hits the road, when push comes to shove.
Yeah. And I'm feeling very grateful that I met all of you, and even if I haven't read the books, you've read them, and It's yeah, it helps with feeling safe to have a network of other learning Jedis.
So you're saying that you're filled with gratitude for this group and the wisdom in it, and your growth in that.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. I feel good.
Bill, would you please listen to me?
I'd be happy to.
Having read many books over the past 6 decades, it's time for me to live that wisdom.
So after reading many books over 6 decades, it's time to get out there and let your freak flag fly.
Blessed David Crosby, pray for us. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay, sure. How are we? Do you want to do the wrap up here? We have about 10 minutes usually.
Yeah, I wasn't keeping track of time.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll stop the recording.